Oh, here's the problem. I forgot to put the batteries in.
In Countdowns, we talk about a lot of different genres, but one that gets overlooked is the 2D shooter. I love this kind of game, basically because games in this genre offer awesome power-ups, tons of enemies to shoot down, excellent boss battles, and intense challenge. Sometimes, perhaps a bit too much so. Anyway, it's about time this genre got its due, so today I'm giving props to those games that make you want to go pew 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 like I did with the toy plane of Doom. These are my picks for the top 10 2D shooters. Now let me clarify, by 2D shooter I do not mean run and gun. I see that as an entirely different genre. And remember, these are only games I've played and only one per franchise. If I don't mention a game you love, chances are I haven't played it. Also, I'm looking at complete games, not minigames or levels. Anyways, you know what time it is. It's game time! If you've got access to a 3DS, then you've got access not only to many kick-ass titles on the eShop, but the entire catalog of DSiWare games. Tucked among those titles is a fun little game called Torrent. While the presentation is nothing special, the game itself is pretty addicting. The challenge in this game is to maintain chains of enemy kills in order to collect cubes to charge your super shot and boost your score. Basically, there are two different planes, and the one you choose determines the difficulty. Noobs can go with the plane with a bullet-canceling shield, and the hardcore can take the ship with the... Another thing I like about this game is the fact that there's a random option. In other words, a mode for players who simply want to test their reflexes rather than their memorization skills. However, a couple things keep Torrent at number 10. First off, there's only one stage theme for each plane. Sorry, but hearing the same tune over and over gets old more often than not. And second, the game is short, clocking in only 8 stages that can be blown through in a matter of minutes. Not to mention, it's a bit on the easy side. Still, if you're a shooter fan with $5 burning a hole in your eShop wallet, then give this game a shot. If there's one company that seems to have a knack for the shooter genre, it's Treasure. They've put out so many quality shooters over the years that somewhere, some alien race is looking at them and wondering if that's how we view extraterrestrials. 2 of their games are on here, in fact. One of them is higher on the list, and the other is Radiant Silvergun. There are several things that I find interesting about this game. One thing is that you start playing the game in Stage 3 as the stages are numbered in chronological order. Yeah, there's a story somewhere, but it was introduced in the Japan-only Saturn version, and I've never owned a Sega Saturn, and I probably shouldn't have said that.
Oh god!
One beating later. Ow! That hurt! Anyway, another feature is how colored enemies factor into the scoring system. Red, blue, and yellow enemies appear, and shooting down 3 of a color in a row gets you a bonus. The soundtrack is tense and dramatic as well, and the visuals are great, especially in HD. One question I have is with the weapon system. Instead of power-ups, you have 7 weapons available at all times, and the challenge is in picking the best weapon for each situation. But really, having 7 weapons at once is kind of difficult to handle. Unless you're this guy.
Scum. I'll kill you.
Whenever something math-related comes up in games, it's usually met with dirty looks.
Nobody said there be...
Yeah, Geometry Wars Galaxies has none of that.
Aside from the ships being geometric shapes and the background looking like graph paper, there's almost no actual math involved. Just a frantic and chaotic twin-stick shooter that throws you into firefight after firefight, and I found this game to be incredibly addicting. Basically, the idea is nothing more than staying alive, shooting down enemies, and collecting geoms to boost your multiplier, unlock new levels, and power up your drone. Oh yeah, I should probably mention that. In Galaxies, you have a drone that can behave in one of 8 different ways, and one of the keys to a better score is to pick the right drone for the right situation. Or you can just go Leroy Jenkins into a level and hope for the best. Each of the planets in the game has its own variety of challenges. While some play like Retro Evolved, others throw various new elements like black holes, asteroids, and flippers into the mix. Also, in some levels, there's so much crazy crap going on that you'll barely have time to catch your breath. Trust me when I say that getting some of those gold medals is quite the feat. Add to that some thumping techno beats, a non-stop barrage of color, 2-player co-op, and the original Retro Evolved, and you've got a game that'll have you sweating as many bullets as you're shooting. Geometry Wars Galaxies, because there's more to math than what the autarch says. Galaga, an arcade classic loved by all who have played it. You've heard me talk about it in my top 15 arcade games of the 80s list, and I don't feel I need to talk about it again. Which is good because now I can talk about Galaga Arrangement instead. While it kind of skirts the no minigames rule because it never had a standalone release, only appearing in compilations even in the arcade, it still manages to stand on its own as a game, so I say it counts. Rightfully so, might I add, because Galaga Arrangement takes the formula of its ancestor from the 80s and has an all-night party in Vegas with it. The formations are wilder, there are a lot more enemies, there are more double ship power-ups, and overall, it's just a lot more fun. I especially appreciate the level of polish that this game has, especially considering it's an updated version of a game that's older than most of us. The backgrounds of the various stages are well detailed for its art style, and the tracks just have that good old outer space feel to them instead of being generic guitar riffs that have no soul. Of course, the challenging stages return as well, and you'll want to have an air sickness bag handy because these bonus levels can make you dizzy if you have a weak constitution. Bottom line, while Galaga is a timeless classic, even a classic can benefit from some freshening up, and Galaga Arrangement provides some kick-ass Febreze right here. And if you're wondering why I didn't put the original on here, it's not for the sake of being redundant. After all, take a look at the next entry. For those of you who saw my previous list and heard me talk about Sine Mora before, you already know the basic gist of the game. For those of you who haven't, here's the skinny. Did you get all that? Well, if you didn't, then go watch that list. As for covering what I missed, well, I should probably explain a little more about the story. There are actually 2 sides to it. One side is through the eyes of a buffalo-headed old dude who wants revenge on the Empire who killed his son after said son allegedly botched an Imperial mission. Let me tell you, this guy is a jerk-ass. I'm serious, the pilot who serves as his partner is pretty much this guy's hostage. If this is what revenge can do to someone, then I'd be more afraid of losing myself to vengeance than losing a friend to some asshole. The second side of the story follows the survivors of a race of creatures who were all but destroyed by the same empire. Sure, it's the same revenge motivation, but I feel more for these guys than Buffalo Head here. Other things that I didn't mention are the multitudes of planes and pilots that are available in arcade and score attack modes. Each plane has its own sub-weapon and time manipulation power, and they're a blast. But probably the most useful mode is boss training. This basically allows you to face any boss you've previously beaten. This is especially awesome because it helps you learn each boss's patterns until you can plow through the fight like a freaking guts dozer. Bottom line, as I've said before, Sine Mora is a lot of fun. If you haven't tried it yet, I'd say it's time you gave it a shot. What the hell is wrong with me? Talk about not giving credit where credit is due. Some people praise Life Force on the NES for having both side-scrolling and top-down levels, but honestly, Axelay did it much better. True, it has the fancy Mode 7 graphics, but that's not why Axelay is win. Levels that don't simply restrict you to the width and or height of the screen is why. The stages have wider boundaries than in most games in the genre, which makes for more possibilities in terms of level design, and this game delivers on those possibilities. Another thing that stands out in Axelay is the connection between the weapon system and how you take damage. You have 3 types of weapons at your disposal: main gun, side gun, and missiles. But here's the thing. If you get hit by enemy fire, you lose the use of your current equipped weapon. Therefore, switching between weapons becomes a matter of strategy instead of hold Y to not die. The fact that you're able to earn weapons after clearing a stage just adds more fun to the game. I'd say that this is a good place for newcomers into the genre. It's not an easy shmup, but it's less punishing than some of the other shooters on the market. One thing bugs me though. Clearing the game twice on the highest difficulty rewarded players with a tease for a sequel. Flash forward to today, and it still hasn't happened. Way to promise and not deliver, Konami!
Seriously, other companies deliver when they promise sequels, right?
Nope.
Do not bring up that painful memory!
Certain franchises are almost obligatory on certain lists. In the case of this list, for example, I can't go without mentioning the R-Type series, otherwise I'd have to get treated for third-degree burns. As far as the series goes, many people point to Super R-Type, but I find more value in R-Type 3. Both pretty much play the same. They both feature lots of enemies with attack patterns that can be tricky to avoid, and levels that can be tough to traverse. The power-up system is basically the same as well. The main gimmick is this force module that can attach to the front or back of the ship and can be propelled from the ship to damage enemies on its own. Also, the module is the element receiving most of the power-ups. Whether it's bouncing lasers, crawling flames, or these things, you don't want to lose these power-ups. Sadly, you do lose all those fancy toys every time you die, which, given the difficulty of the series, will happen a lot. Which leads to why I picked R-Type 3 over Super R-Type. Checkpoint, son! In Super R-Type, if you die anywhere in the level, even at the freaking boss, you go all the way back to the beginning of the level. In R-Type 3, you only go back to the last checkpoint. Believe me, the less of a level you have to repeat, the better. Also, you actually get a choice of force modules in this game, and you know how I love having gameplay options. Also, the levels in the game take better advantage of the Super Nintendo's hardware than Super R-Type did. In the first level alone, we see some creative moments, and it just gets better from there. Of course, this isn't the only series I'm obligated to talk about here. Hint, hint. Much like R-Type, you can't make a list about 2D shooters without mentioning the Gradius franchise at least once. Its impact on the genre can be felt from here to Alpha Centauri. It has spin-offs. It has sequels. Its spin-offs have sequels. However, of the games in the series that I've played, my favorite, by far, is Gradius 3. For an early Super Nintendo game, this is really polished. The levels in this game mark a significant step up from the first two games, both in their design and in their enemies. For instance, the first stage has sand dragons, and the second features
Fucking bubble!
Another thing I love about Gradius 3 is how you can customize your power-ups. You have options for your laser, you have options for your double shot, you even have options for your options! Aw, come on, don't tell me you didn't see it coming! Also, I have to give mention to the bosses in this game. While there are a few of the standard shoot-the-core bosses, others can get pretty creative here and there. I mean, we have a giant earwig, a two-headed lava dragon, and even that plant from Little Shop of Horrors. Not to mention, this game has my second favorite intro for a 2D shooter ever. And don't forget, you can get this game on the Wii's Virtual Console, so there's really nothing holding you back. One piece of advice, however, if you want to use the Konami code, use the freaking LNR buttons. Otherwise, you'll just, well... basically, Ikaruga. When I said this game demands that you have a cast-iron ass more than a year ago, I wasn't kidding. Ikaruga, without a doubt, goes as one of the most challenging games I have ever played. But that's exactly what makes it a standout among other games in the genre. The gameplay mechanics are used to such an effective degree that those aliens who were watching Treasure earlier are probably studying this game to improve their own defensive capabilities. Ikaruga is brilliant in its simplicity. It really is a matter of black and white. Enemies and bullets come in both black and white, and the way it figures into the gameplay is sheer genius. First of all, the chain system. If you destroy 3 enemies of the same color in a row, you get a chain bonus. The way the enemies are laid out, you can really rack up some serious points if you're good enough. However, there's more. Using the polarity system, your ship can switch between black and white. It's easier to destroy enemies of the opposite color, however, your ship can actually absorb bullets of the same color. That means if you're really good, you can go through the entire game without firing a single shot. What's more, all those bullets can charge up a super attack that can really do some damage. Of course, this game is extremely well presented as well. The backgrounds are simply gorgeous, and the music just sounds heroic. However, like I said, this game is balls to the wall hard. You are going to have a challenge from the first level to the final boss. But let me tell you, it's worth it to experience one of the greatest shooters in recent generations. And then there's number 1.
Remember how I said Gradius 3 had my second favorite intro in a 2D shooter ever? Well, my favorite intro happens to come from my number 1. Just from seeing it, you know you're in for something awesome. Kinda like this. What is that? Creeping getting louder and louder. I am intrigued as to what this could be. Whoa, what the fuck is that? Spider-Man! I mean, you like Squadron!
That's right, my favorite 2D shooter of all time is UN Squadron for the Super Nintendo. You may remember me talking about this game from my audition for Idionovo's Super NES Games Countdown where I played with the toy plane of Doom, but for those of you who haven't, I'll have to go over it again. The Super NES version of UN Squadron surpasses its arcade counterpart in virtually every aspect. It looks better, it sounds better, and it plays better. The idea of the game is that you have 3 ace pilots going up against the terrorist group known as Project 4. Shin Kazama powers up quickly, Mickey Simon can carry more sub-weapons, and Greg Gates can recover from damage more quickly. As you take on missions, you'll shoot down countless enemies, take on massive bosses, and move up the map. One thing I love about this game is how you can earn in-game money to buy new planes to use and how you can customize your power-ups. As you gain money by shooting down enemies, you're able to buy better and better planes up to the Ifrit, which costs $1 million! You also have a vast array of sub-weapons you can buy for your plane, which have awesome offensive capabilities. I also really like the life system. You don't die from one hit. Instead, you go into a danger state where if you get hit in danger state, you die automatically, but if you survive long enough, you can pick up right where you left off. But the main reason that UN Squadron is number 1 is because the difficulty curve is just right. It never feels so easy that you can plow right through it, but never too difficult that it feels cheap. It's smooth and fair, and it feels so satisfying just to blow enemies to Kingdom Come. It's just the right scale to keep you on your toes without causing you to throw your controller in rage. With all this going for it, you wonder why it's never been on a virtual console? Well, take a look at the Japanese title, Area 88. There's your answer. Licensing laws can be such a pain sometimes.
I'm the quarter guy.
And in breaking news, we are live at the crash site of an unknown aircraft that has landed on the outskirts of town.
And I think I just found out what happened to that plane.